What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Hanny Show. So, in this podcast, we interview business leaders, entrepreneurs, people that are doing amazing things in the community, and we want to help and share their stories. So, my name is Hanny Mohari. I'm your host. I run a company called Hanny Mobile. Yeah, today I have a very special guest. I have Maddie Thompson from Mad Social Media Agency Marketing. And thank you so much for coming on the show, Maddie, and welcome.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
Appreciate
for sure.
it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So we're gonna jump right in. So Maddie, tell everybody what you do and at social media marketing agency.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm the founder of Mad Social. We are a digital marketing agency based here in Winnipeg, and we do a bit of everything, primarily social media marketing and content production. So that being said, we also do like websites, branding, SEO, that kind of stuff. And we really focus on psychology and the human behavior of why people go on social media and why people go online and what type of content they actually want to consume. So we look at it from a bit of a different angle. We try to have fun with it, where we try to build brands into like reality TV shows online. That's what I do.
That's amazing, Maddie. Thank you so much. So Maddie, tell us a little bit about your story and how you kind of got started doing all this.
For sure. So my story starts young. Mad Social is a story in its own, but for me personally, I kind of started in the business world and making content when I was about 13 years old. That's when I started a YouTube channel. I would post consistently every single week, like Bean Boozled challenges, vlogs, that type of stuff. I'd go to St. Mattel Mall and like film myself doing random vlogs. And when I was 13, I really wanted to be a fashion designer. So what I did is I reached out to about 150 businesses on Instagram DM. I saw a video of Gary Vee talking about how DMs are so powerful because we can reach out to anybody we want to. And so I went ahead, I DM'd businesses, my fashion designs. One of them replied back, wanted to meet me in person. They were in Winnipeg for a photo shoot they were doing. And it just kind of spun into this thing where I started designing clothes for them. So at 13, I was making YouTube content, so I learned editing and all that skill. And then I was also designing clothes for an actual national brand. So I'd have to go to Calgary for meetings and stuff like that. And so I was super integrated with making collections and marketing and seeing how a company was run and kind of the back end of stuff. Then when I was 16, I took a class called Visions and Ventures. So like basically business class in high school. And I wanted to start a clothing brand, of course, because I'm creative. I already kind of did that. So I did hoodies. It was social clothing, paid homage to Winnipeg socials, if you're kind of familiar with all that. And it did pretty well considering it was a high school project. Continued that on, went to architecture school. So why I tell that part of the story is because I really feel like those two things helped be who I am today. It helped me learn a lot of skill, and I had a TikTok account blow up when I was 16 as well. And if those little incremental wins didn't happen, we wouldn't have Mad. It just wouldn't exist. There would be no way. So that's why I kind of tell that story. And then from Mad, I was in architecture school. It was during COVID. I was bored as hell. And the only job I've ever had in my entire life was at a dollar store. And my manager wanted me to run the social media account for the dollar store because I had my TikTok and social clothing and all that. And so I started running it. It was doing really well. And I saw online this girl who was like, oh, make $5,000 working from home. You can work wherever you want. But I'm like, oh, fuck, I can do that. I can manage accounts. I'm doing it for the dollar store. So started doing that and made an account in one day. I didn't really start a business. It was just kind of, it was extra gas money. And it was money that paid for my U of M parking, right, as a broke university student. And it just spiraled from there. Now we have 30 team members and 4 years later.
Wow, that's powerful. Starting at 13 years old and just diving into it. I mean, DMing people is like at that age, it's crazy. Most people are afraid to get rejection, so that's remarkable for you to be able to do that. So let's talk a little bit about Mad Social Media Agency Marketing. What kind of business owners does Mad help? What is your target and what do you do?
Yeah, so we actually help everybody, and not only businesses, but also personal brands. So that's what I love. I think a lot of agencies niche down to either like realtors or government work or stuff like that. We work with literally everybody. Everything from the girliest of clothing brands to restaurants to insurance brokers, property managers. And so it's really cool because we have a really robust team with different skill sets and we get to learn every single industry. I think I've worked in every industry at this point. Even, yeah, everybody. Anybody who wants to grow online and grow their business or their personal brand.
That's amazing. So, Maddie, tell our audience a little bit because social media is very broad.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between marketing and branding? What's the difference between those two?
The difference between marketing and branding. So I would say branding is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And regardless of whether you think you have a brand or not, even if you're not on social media, you still have a brand. Your brand is who you are as a human being. And as a business, your brand is what people say about your business when you are not there, when you're not in the room. That is your brand. A brand is not logos, it's not colors, it's not your fonts. It's literally the perception of how people see you. Then in my eyes, at least, and I think the word marketing is kind of subjective because people can see it different ways. Marketing is kind of like you're trying to get sales, right? So it's putting yourself out there. It's getting attention. Marketing is literally trying to get attention for yourself and your company. And so there's many different ways you can do that, obviously. You can do that through ads. You can do that through video content online, multiple different avenues.
That's a great breakdown. So you said that you have 30 team members with Mass Social Media Agency, right? There's a lot of young entrepreneurs out there who want to get into business and entrepreneurship. What's been like your struggles and when you first got started to where you are now? There's a process to how you got there. So what's that been like for you so far?
Funny thing is, I would say I'm struggling more now than I was in the beginning. Starting is easy. The hardest thing is continuing on and growing and pushing through when you're having those late nights crying, when you have to make payroll and you don't know how you're going to do it, when you have clients and people yelling at you and people telling you, so to all the entrepreneurs out there who want to be business owners, you need grit. I tattooed on my wrist last week, 40%, David Goggins. The 40% rule it's an old military rule. When you feel like you've exhausted all effort mentally or physically, you're only 40% of the way there. And so that's something that's carried me through my whole life. And if you want to be a business owner, you have to have that mindset of, I don't give a fuck if you're sad and mental health, this and that. Obviously, you need to take care of yourself, but I don't care if you're sad. I don't care what happened in your life. I don't care if you got broken up with. You got to get the job done. And that's what it's like as a business owner. You have people relying on you. You are literally paying people's salaries that helps them live. You can't slack off. You can't take a sick day. It's just not possible.
That's the accountability right there as a leader. That's, John C. Maxwell talks a lot about that. When you're a leader, people have to follow you. So you have to lead first in order for people to follow you. So that's a great example. Tell us, Maddie, a lot of time when we're getting into business, we have those obstacles. And I always like to break this analogy of is it mindset? What's the difference? Do you think is more important? Is it mindset or having a mindset between skill set? What's the difference between those two? What's more important?
Mindset and skill set? Mindset, for sure. I have no skills. I can fake it till I make it, and I'm really good at bullshitting my skills. I heavily believe in mindset. When we are hiring people, I look at potential. And I look at how much is that person willing to learn and what is their mindset around work and accountability and how do they want to grow and how fast do they want to grow and what are their goals. And I don't necessarily look at, are they good at Canva? Are they good at writing emails? I kind of would relate mindset with soft skills and skill sets as hard skills of, you can do math, that kind of stuff. So yeah, mindset.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. You can look at mindset, growth mindset or fixed mindset to see where you are. Yeah. So Maddie, tell us, if someone who's brand new to social media and has 0 followers and wants to get started, and we all have this 2025, everybody has their goals. How would you go about it if somebody is brand new to social media and wants to get started today?
Yeah, I think it depends on if you're a personal brand or if you're a business and what your goal with your profile is. Great, you want to grow social media, but why do you want to grow social media? Is it because you want to make money? Is it because you want public validation? Is it because you're a creative and you really just love making videos and you want to start posting them? So figuring out, okay, what is your actual goal? And then from there, you can make a roadmap from that. So figuring that out, and then posting consistently. I think that a lot of people, they're like, oh, I want to start posting on social. But mentally, they're so scared of judgment. They're just so scared. I've talked to so many people where they're like, yeah, I want to be an influencer. I want to be a creator. I want to make all these videos, but I'm just scared of what people are going to think of my content. Well, if you're scared your whole life about what people are going to think of you, you're not going to get anywhere. You just have, and it's the hardest thing to just tell somebody like, oh, don't care what people think of you. I was extremely conscious of that my whole life, and I'm finally over it. It just takes years. Those would be the two main things. And if you don't know how to make videos, if you don't know the strategy to do all that stuff, research online, reach out to someone like me. We could do a strategy call. There's people to help, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the scary part is I definitely had to go through that where you have those limiting beliefs. You can't do this, you can't do that, and it's tough. You just gotta do it. So, if someone is getting started, what are some different contents they should be able to target and get into? Like, what are some strategies that you implement that you think they should get into in the beginning?
So in the beginning, when you're starting out, try everything. Try vlogs, try scripts, try podcast styling like this. Maybe you're better off having a conversation with someone and filming that. Try every kind of style of content possible, and then figure out what you like best and what your audience likes best. And so we do that for all of our clients, and then we break it down into 3 tiers of content. So we do exposure content. Exposure content is like memes and trends and stuff like that, where it doesn't necessarily relate to your business or your personal brand, but it's more to get yourself out there and try and get on the explore page. Then we have nurturing content. Nurturing content is when you have those people who saw you from your exposure content, you're now nurturing them by educating them, telling them about your story. A lot of the Mad content's nurturing because we're doing a lot of vlogs showcasing the team, and we're doing a lot of like educational storytelling content. So that's nurturing. It's like, okay, people know who Maddie is. Now they want to know her story. And so I'm nurturing that audience. Then we have converting content. So then converting content is when you've had that really nurtured audience, they're like fans of you, right? Maybe they've been following you a year and a half. This is a really long, slow burn process. Then that's when you do your ask and you launch an offer, you do something like that. You try and get them on a call, you try and sell your product, and that's when you can sell to them and ultimately make money if that's your goal. The general split is you want more exposure content, then next is nurturing, and then not as much converting content, but you obviously need a little bit. And I think the biggest mistake a lot of business owners make is they only post conversion content and ad-like content, because I think that's what's going to make them sales. But it doesn't relate to people, and it doesn't make people trust you. And I always tell clients and leads this when they're like, no, Maddie, I want more like ad content, pushing products. I tell them, why do you go on your phone? Why do you go on Instagram or TikTok and scroll? Is it to buy a product or service? Fuck no. Nobody goes on Instagram with the intent of wanting to buy a product. They go on social because they want to be entertained, because they want to learn something new, because they want to decompress at the end of the day. So if you're a brand and you can do those 3 things and you can relate to people and build trust, that's going to get more sales at the end of the day than pushing a product. It's just like Ryanair. I love using that example. Or Midday Squares. Every time I see a Midday Squares in the store, I want to buy it just because I love their story and I love their journey.
Yeah, no, I definitely follow you a lot on all social media platforms. I think one thing that I've taken away from what you do is you talk a lot about the story, nurturing part, because you say a lot that people buy from people. Why is that so important when people, there's a lot of people who just want to talk about the results, but they don't want to talk about the story aspect. So tell us, because you always talk about it, because I pay attention to a lot of your content. You always kind of go back into your story.
Yes, always. Yeah. So first of all, why the people connecting with people is important is, are you going to use the realtor that your friend recommended to you, or are you going to use a random realtor you found on a bench? Probably the one your friend referred to you, because you know, like, and trust that friend. You have a personal connection with them. People will connect with people. I'm seeing this with brands consistently, and I think it's a future of marketing where brands will have a person being the face of the brand. And you've probably seen it, like there's Mr. Beast, there's Prime, there's even Whitney Wolf with Bumble is pretty tied to her brand as well. people are attached to their companies, and it makes those companies so much more trustworthy because they know the founder and they know the story. Why storytelling is important is because it helps build that personal connection, and hopefully the viewer on the other side of the phone can pick apart something from that story and relate to it. So maybe I'm talking about in basketball in grade 10, I got kicked out because I punched a girl in the face. Just because I'm super determined, obviously. I have a lot of grit. I win. I want to win. And maybe I did actually tell a story on LinkedIn. And so maybe I'm telling that story, and there's somebody who owns a business out there, and maybe they played basketball and they had a similar experience. And then they want to reach out and like talk to me about it and be like, that's so funny, that story, I definitely relate to it. And it builds that personal connection a lot more by telling a story that someone can relate to.
You're very good at doing it because I'm watching. So, Maddie, tell us. Nowadays, we're seeing the algorithm is very fast. Like, you talk a lot about getting the hook. Somebody has to be able to watch your 3-4 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing YouTube, we're seeing Instagram, LinkedIn. Out of all those social media platforms, what's the difference between all those? Because I'm seeing right now YouTube Shorts. We're seeing a lot of faceless creators, people who don't even show their faces, and they're just doing numbers. So I'm kind of seeing them like, okay, that's kind of crazy. So what do you kind of see with those different platforms?
So faceless content, first of all, is huge. I think faceless content was really in for a few months, and then it kind of faded away. We had a post for a mortgage broker. I think it's at 3 million views last week it got. And it's faceless content. It's literally like a Twitter style post, and it has the cities and the average house price of all the cities. And it was so controversial that everybody was commenting, be like, no fucking way, blah, blah, blah. And it kind of stirred up stuff. So across different platforms, like, I don't have a different strategy for different platforms except for LinkedIn. My philosophy is just make really good content and post everything everywhere. If you have a specific strategy for a specific platform, you are going to burn out easily. Obviously, if you're doing long form YouTube content, that's way different. But then typically, if you're still doing long form YouTube, you're cutting it up into shorts for Instagram and TikTok and YouTube shorts as well, and even LinkedIn, right? So it kind of goes across everything. That's my philosophy on it. Like, I wouldn't really consider like, oh, I'm seeing this trend on this platform and this trend on this platform. Regarding hooks, as you kind of first mentioned, what I love doing is we built like amazing AI bots that are just crazy at this. So like, we don't even have to manually do anything anymore. But who has hooks figured out the best? YouTubers. Long form YouTubers like Mr. Beast, like all of them, they have hooks figured out and they have video concepts figured out. So if we just took those concepts that are already viral on long form content and turn those hooks into short form content, that's a winner right there. It's kind of one thing that we're seeing and trying to do a little bit.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to kind of go, because there's so much different ways to go about it, because those YouTube shorts and the short form content on Instagram is really taking off.
Yeah.
So Maddie, for someone who's just getting started in the social media world, right, that has 0 followers, I know when I first started, I had 0 followers. The numbers, you're looking at the numbers. I'm not getting 500 views. I'm not getting 200 views, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think people should post? Because I feel like there has to be a why. There has to be a reason to what you're doing. Social media marketing, to put yourself out there, like you said, the branding, the marketing. What do you tell that somebody that's just, I'm afraid to do it, but I'm not getting impressions, I'm not getting followers, what do you tell that person?
Yeah, like, I don't think everybody's made to be on social, and I don't think everybody's made to put themselves out there. So again, it comes back to like why you actually want to post yourself online. And I did a Red River speech on this not too long ago, and I love the approach of how I explained it. If you are scared to be in front of the camera and put yourself out there, but you still love making content and you love the social media aspect of it, maybe you're somebody who should be more behind the scenes working at an agency or running profiles for someone. And it's still, you get to do the content, you get to script, you get to edit, you get to do the graphic design and everything. And you still get to post, but it's not you. And I also find that doing it for somebody else helps you get over that fear yourself. I find, at least that's like in a personal experience. It took me a long time to post my first reel on Instagram, as ridiculous as that sounds. There's my buddy Bueno who actually convinced me to post my first reel. And I was constantly doing it for clients, and I just wasn't doing it because I was so scared. He's like, man, you just have to do it. It's always one step at a time. It's just that first step. one action that you can do, and you just constantly want to push yourself to do more.
Yeah, don't be afraid. You just gotta go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's gonna judge you. People are gonna have their say, and
everybody's gonna judge. Yeah. We're human beings. That's what we do. We gossip and we're judgmental. We have nothing else to do than talk to each other and talk shit about people. So it's just like, it's your life. Why are you gonna let other people dictate what you do and dictate how you live your life? We're all gonna die. Like that's the biggest fear amongst people. Once you kind of understand that everybody's largest fear is death, and everybody's gonna die, right? Why do you give a fuck what somebody cares about, like thinks about you, if you're all gonna be dead in 100 years anyway? Go live your life. If you want to post, go post online. You're gonna be dead soon anyway. As morbid as that is, it's true. When you get in that mindset of like, you are going to die, actually do what you want. Who cares about the money? Who cares about the politics? Who cares about what your friend group says about you? Who cares about if your mom tells you to stay in university and you know it's not the right path for you? Do your own thing, because everybody around you will die.
Great reminder. Stoicism. You know, Marcus, it really is here. All those people, you know, they talked about it. You're going to die eventually, and that's how you have to look at it, because then that's where the limiting beliefs and the self-doubts really come in, and you just gotta kind of go for it. So that's a great way to say it, Maddie.
Well, and it pushes you to do more too when you can see it that way.
Yeah, 100%. And you just got to get started and then figure it out, and then eventually be able to grow to 30. That's amazing. So Maddie, tell me, the next 5 years, where do you see Mad Social Media Agency? Where do you see it going?
It's so funny. Everybody asks me this question, and I never like know how to answer it. So I would always like talk about the vision, and like I have no vision. I have goals. I don't have a vision. I would say the next 5 years, I really want to focus on that reality TV show aspect of the company, which we're starting to implement, and it's doing quite well, where we're posting other team members, doing vlogs, doing stuff that's not even related to marketing. Like Carly's in a bunch of our content, and it's great because before the brand was so attached to me, now it's also attached to the team. So the problem was Blaze would get in sales calls, and then they'd be like, "Where's Maddie?" And then we'd pass it off to a manager, and they'd be like, "Where's Maddie?" And like, I'm never a part of the process anymore, to be completely clear. But now it's like, oh, they get on a sales call with Blaze and they know Blaze from online. And then we pass it to Carly and they're like, oh my God, Carly, I love your videos on the Mad page. So focusing heavily more on the reality TV show aspect in the 5 years, I'd say, is big. I also just want to touch on like that whole vision and goals thing again. I had a great meeting with my mentor in Vancouver, like few weeks ago, and he was like, Maddie, I see you're posting online all the time about like the vision of Mad and the vision you have, but do you actually have a vision? And he explained it of how years ago he would always talk about the vision too, but he never actually knew what that was. And I was like, Chris, honestly, I have no idea what the vision is. So for some reason I constantly say that online. And he turned the conversation to, that's okay. Like, I don't think anybody should have a vision. And I don't think anybody you should have goals and steps that you want to take, but not a vision, because that's just going to stress you out and you're just way too focused on the end result, and you're not focused on those little incremental goals and the process of what's going to get you to that success that you're internally wanting. Yeah, so that's just kind of how I view like 5-year, 10-year goals.
Yeah, no, I like that. Instead of just, you know, thinking about it, you have those small steps that you're working towards, like 1% better every single day.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to kind of look at it. So Maddie, tell us, like, for someone who is young out there, young entrepreneurs watching this podcast, you know, what's one word of advice you would give them?
Grit, as I kind of mentioned before.
Yeah, it is.
Grit would be number one. Persistence is huge. Persistence, grit, all those type of things of just pushing through. If you have a good idea, it's going to matter of if it's going to work. It's a matter of when it's going to work. And it's the same with content too. It's like we always tell clients this, oh, when are my posts going to go viral? When can I expect 1,000 followers? Or can I expect 1,000 followers? I mean, and it's not if, it's when. It's just like constantly pushing and persistence. And I feel like that's where I am at right now, because we're kind of in that like scaling, heavy growing pain stage. And it's just like every day it's like, Maddie, just fucking hang in there, because but it's, yeah, you just got to keep going.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to kind of go about it. Earlier, you talked about a mentor. I think I always tell like young people, like, if you want to exceed in life, you know, find a mentor. So you've probably had so many mentors and people you've came across. Like, like from all successful people, I mean, if you read books or anything, what's one thing you've learned from people that are successful, people who have achieved something that you know, impactful?
Good question. I would say that one takeaway from Chris was huge. I have two main mentors, Joelle from North Forge, and then Chris is the president of Centum. He's out in Vancouver. Um, I don't even know. Like the main takeaway in my head right now from them is that one Chris told me 3 weeks ago. Definitely, there was even a few years, maybe five, I guess 5 years ago when I met with Chris. This isn't even relevant anymore, but it's when I was deciding to drop out of school to run my business full time, and it was kind of about like my mom and like my parents not wanting me to and all this stuff, and then Chris was like telling me about how they're proud of me and all this shit, and that just kind of hit home. But yeah, anyway,
Yeah.
that was it. It's like it's a whole parent thing of like they just want the best for you, but they're gonna have opinions and they're not gonna showcase all the time. They're
Like they
before I
always,
start getting too deep and crying.
yeah. You share what people want to hear, Maddie.
Yeah.
Okay, no worries. So that's amazing. So Maddie, this show we like to switch it up a little bit. We talk about a little bit about money, because you know everything is involved around money exchange and value exchange, right? So what's the greatest lesson you learned about money so far? You've given, you know, what's one thing you learned so far?
The greatest lesson about money. I think frugal is the right word. Is frugal the word where you like don't spend a lot? I don't even know. I'm like, I don't spend. I'm very, as I'm wearing a fucking Cartier watch, but I treat myself sometimes. But in the business specifically, in certain things, I don't spend a lot of money. Like I'm very lean with the company, even though it's the most amount of money we spent in the past 30 days, but it's because we're doing ads and more content. But I'm very, very lean. And I didn't even do that purposely. It was just, I grew up in a middle class family. I think the mindset when you grow up in a middle class is you save your money. You don't really invest. You don't spend a lot of money. You just save it, right? That's like a heavy middle class mindset. And I think that fucked me over, but it also benefited a bit of my cheapness. And my cheapness, it's been great because it's like, we have a good amount of cash where we could invest a lot into something if we need to buy another agency as an example, which is a goal of mine within the next 3 years. I guess that's a goal for 5 to 10 years. So yeah, that would be one of my big things. And like having what's called money dates with yourself. So once every 2 weeks, go to a coffee shop, sit down with your balance sheet, sit down with your expenses, turn off your phone and have a money date. And go over everything. And you'll probably find gaps and stuff that you wouldn't have found if you didn't just sit down with no computer or anything, just pieces of paper and like go over it. So that's huge as well.
Yeah. Great example of looking at the numbers, and then Robert Kiyosaki has this thing where it's not about how much money you make, it's how much you keep. So in business, you can make $500,000, but if you don't keep some of that money, then it's just somebody else. So
Yeah.
that's a great way to kind of segue about it. So Maddie, tell us, like, so far, all the things that you've been able to do, because I study a lot of the things that you talked about acquiring companies at the end, and that's kind of, I see a lot of Alex Hormozy. What you're doing is amazing to where I feel like you could do so much more. So what does that look like when you talk about acquiring companies and your potential, your future next step? Because
Yeah.
you seem like a boss lady. I mean, let's someone that can do, you know. So what does that look like, you know?
Yeah. So I want to acquire another agency or some sort of social media related thing in maybe 3 years. I think that's one of our best ways that we could grow, like an easy way to kind of grow because you're literally just acquiring someone, right? As long as we can keep the amount of cash flow we currently have, then that will be fine. And then the other thing is I love Barstool Sports model where they have like Pink Whitney under them as an example. And they had I don't think it's anymore, but the Call Her Daddy podcast was under them. And so they Barstool Sports is basically a marketing agency that markets for their own companies. That's how I see them. And I love that model. And clients are a pain in the ass. I have some clients I love, but it's hard to work for somebody else's company and like try and convince them of how they should actually be doing social and marketing when they're so, their businesses, they're big, right? And I think it'd be cool if like Mad was the company. Mad was like the marketing agency, but we had our own brands. We had our own mocktail company. We had our own insurance company. We had like all these other companies kind of under us. So I like the Layla Hermosi and the, I guess, Hermosi model where they kind of take percentages in companies and stuff like that. But I want to go maybe even a step, like they do it at a mass amount. So I wouldn't want to do it at a mass amount, but like a step further in starting our own brands under Mad and not taking a percentage of others and seeing all of those subsidiary brands as a marketing first business that sells a product. I think that's how all businesses should see themselves. They should see themselves as a social media marketing agency that sells XYZ. And that is, in my eyes, the success to business in like right now.
And it's a good way to kind of go. But I think you're gonna do amazing things. The future is definitely bright for anybody who's watching this from Winnipeg, seeing where you started at 13 years old to see where you are. It's a great testament that anything is possible as long as you have that drive and that grit, like you said. And you gotta want to win because winning is it separates people who want to losers, and then there's two different columns that we can look at, right? And so winning is like it's every day showing up in the marketplace when it's tough and it's hard, and you got to keep going and tackling it. So, Matt, before we close out the show, if you have some questions for me, you're most likely to ask me some questions, and we can wrap it up here. And so.
Yeah, I want to. I love that money question you asked me. What I learned about. I want to know what have you learned about money over the years that really stuck with you.
Yeah. Great question. I actually started in the stock market, so I realized that people who are wealthy and who are very successful in life, they just understand the money game. They understand, cash flow, balance sheets, and when I got into the stock market, I realized that it's money was just a game in a sense where people, I was in the market where buyers and sellers. So there's people who buy something for $50 and they sell it for 60 in the stock market. That was a great lesson to knowing that one day when I do start a company. So I was studying a lot of Warren Buffett's, the Ray Dalios. So I was already kind of looking at, okay, what does Ray Dalio do? How does he make money? So there's a lot of psychology to money, right? So like a lot of time, why do we do certain things? Okay, I realized, okay, is it the discipline that I got to work on? Okay, so how do I do this? How do I do so? Money was it's more of the psychology piece that kind of really missing for me. Like, like knowing the discipline. Okay, how do I actually track? Because we not really thought about like, tracking expenses, and those are not things you learn in school. So for me, it was just the principles of like, understanding buying and selling, and then also how do you keep that money? And then I always tell people like, the wealthy and the rich, they're not smart. They're not smarter than they just know the game. What the game is like, they understand that, they keep less than they make, what I mean? And they understand how the wealth is being played, the stock market, real estate. So these are all tools that you can be able to get into your leverage, because ultimately, once we do have that business structured and we make money off that business, how do we have that passive income to be able to diversify our money to get into items like, tools like the stock market and real estate and be able to play those games. So that's kind of where I've really learned a lot about money. And it's just the psychology piece of it. It's just like the discipline of knowing, okay, you made money, but how do you actually keep that money? Because that was the hardest part, was the mind game. Because when I was trading the stock market, I would go in and I would trade and I would compete with the best. Like, we're talking about hedge funds, people that are making millions of dollars. So now when you're competing against those guys, it's not the person that has the most capital. It's just more the person that, it's like chess, like the person that makes the next move and who's more calculated, has a strategy and understands where they are in the market and their position. So that's kind of where I really learned, especially about money, and that's kind of how I see the game really played. But you have to learn the game because you're gonna play different at every stage, so you have to learn how it's played. If not, you end up getting played. We're seeing it all the time. It's just like people are getting hit with taxes. That's why we're business owners. We want to be able to leverage our money and be able to play the wealth game. And so that's kind of where I really do. And I'm a student of life. I'm not saying that I figured everything out.
Of course.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of learning, and as I go, and it's the greatest thing is just you got to be a learner, you got to be a student, and read. Money is will make money. Why not talk about money? You sit a lot of time with your friends and your family members. It's like they don't want to talk about the money. It's like you're going out, you're going to work for a job, you're getting X amount of dollars. Why not talk about how can you grow that money? How can you protect that money? So that's kind of where I came from, and it's the greatest thing because I didn't come from money at all. So it's I had to learn a lot of those things, and so self knowledge is what I'm really big at. Personal development. I tell people all the time, like if you want to grow, it's mind, body, and soul. Like you got to work on yourself and develop that infrastructure, because nowadays it's very easy to kind of get distracted, right? But if you work on yourself, like it gives you the highest high ROI, return of investment on your money. So that's kind of where I could tell you a little bit of my money journey. And I'm still working on it every single day.
Love it. That's great.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you so much, Maddie, for jumping on the show. It's grateful. Like I said, like I started my business 2 years ago, and my goal in the beginning was okay, make money, but then how do you make an impact? And so I really went into the community. I started reaching out to different people. There's this great book. It's called Never Eat Alone. Keith Ferrazzi talks about this. Like instead of going to networking events, why not host your own networking events? So that's why I kind of got into the lounge. And so when I seen what you were doing online, I'm like, okay, let me reach out to her and see if she can jump on the show. I reached out to you and you were fast. You responded right away. It was like, yeah, for sure. Jump on the show. Let me send you tell me when it happened and invite me. And you're you're a humble person. You weren't trying to, who's this guy? He doesn't have who, so you're willing to kind of share that space and be able to come to the community. And like I said, you showed up and people got so much value. And they're like, people were asking me, is she still coming again? I had so many messages.
Happy to.
Yeah.
Anything to support Winnipeg, like the Winnipeg community.
Yeah. So it's amazing. I really thank you so much. And where can people find you, Maddie?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Maddie Thompson, Instagram, Maddie Teresa, or Mad Social Agency on any single platform, as well as our website.
There you go. So check out Maddie. She's doing amazing things, and stay tuned. This is the Hanny Show podcast. The future is going to look bright for Maddie and her social media agency. It's going to be looking good. And stay tuned. We might have Maddie back up on the Hanny Lounge. You never know. 2025. So, okay. Thank you so much, man. I like to do a handshake.
There we go.